Good afternoon. I'm just gonna give it a couple minutes to allow people to join in. But we are now at the end of the Canadian Physique Alliance competitive season. So I figured it would be a good idea to make a live in which I will be discussing with Courtney everything that has to do with the CPA. This is mostly going to be useful for novice competitors, first-time competitors, people that are perhaps, hey Velvet, people that are perhaps considering competing, but they perhaps require a little bit more information. We're going to have a Q&A section. I'll first start once Courtney joins by talking about the tier system, how it works with the CPA. Again, for a lot of you, you may be familiar with it, you might have competed, but you may pick a couple of new pieces of information from what we're saying here. We'll talk about the different types of streams, open, natural, how to qualify to the pro qualifiers, and all that good stuff. There we go.
We're here. Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. All right. So I just did a brief introduction about what we're going to be discussing. So without further ado, I'll just basically start. We're going to discuss about the CPA. So this is the Canadian Physique Alliance, which is the amateur association in Canada. In the United States, we have the NPC, and everywhere else in the world is called the NPC worldwide, but really they are the same. They operate very similarly. There may be slight differences in terms of qualification length, which placings allow you to qualify to the next level when it comes to the States and in Mexico or any other country. So with the CPA, we have a tier system. There's two tiers. The first level is the entry level. It's called the regional level. So in order for you to compete at a regional show, there's no pre-qualification required. It could be your very first show. This could also serve as a requalifying show for you to do a higher level show. But basically, this is where if you've never competed before and you want to kind of give it a try, any show across Canada that is a regional show would allow you to basically enter this world. In the regional show, you will have different categories, and I'll talk a little bit more in detail in a bit, but there's going to be categories like the true novice and the novice, in which if you're a very first time competitor, that is perfectly suitable for you. And there's also the open classes, which are the ones that allow you to qualify to the next level. After the regional show, provided that you qualify, you get to compete at a pro qualifying show if you wish. Now, the qualification has a length of 365 days. So let's say you do the Van Dyke Classic next year, which is going to be May 25th, and you place top 3. Then you're qualified for any pro qualifier in Canada for 365 days up to May 25th the following year, which in this case will be 2026. In Canada, we have 4 pro qualifiers. 3 of them are open pro qualifiers, and I'll get a little bit more in detail about the 2 different streams, and 1 natural. So we have 2 streams, or 2 types, I guess, of regional and pro qualifier systems. One of them is the natural one, which is drug tested. The winners are immediately coming up from stage. They are tested via urine samples. And you have the open stream, which is basically non-tested. In Canada, we have, and this is where it's very important to know which show you're particularly talking about, because you may have heard someone say, I'm doing the pro qualifier in Toronto, which is interesting because we actually have 3 pro qualifiers in Toronto. So One of them is called the Toronto Pro Qualifier. It is usually in June. And this is an open international pro qualifier, which means that once you do a regional in Canada as a Canadian, you get your top three. You get to compete at this one if the timeline allows. When this international pro qualifier is open to anyone in the world, so other people from other countries would have qualified through their countries and the system that they have there to compete in such a show. For Canadians, you do a regional, then you can do the show. Then in
I'm
July,
gonna
go ahead.
let me cut you in. You have to be top three in the regional before you can go into the pro qualifier,
So
right?
you have to be the classes that qualify you to a pro qualifier are either the open. Open basically means that for example, in bikini, it's just by height. It's regardless of age, regardless of level of experience. It's literally just by height. That's the open class, so the higher level class in a regional show. The so if you qualify, if you get top three in the open classes, you qualify. But also, you're able to qualify through the masters
Okay.
classes as well. So depending on the show, you'll have masters somewhere from 35 plus. Some shows have 40 plus, 45 plus, 50 plus. Depending on how big the show is expected to be, that is going to dictate usually the number of classes that you'll have. Some shows will have a masters overall because they expect a lot of masters competitors to be in there, and I'll explain what an overall means, by the way. Some other shows have very few classes in different divisions. It really depends on the history of the show, what the promoter expects in terms of numbers. Um, so an overall winner, what does this mean? In either a masters category or an open category per division, let's say bikini, this basically means first place of first places. So let's say in a given show, you have four open bikini classes, A, B, C, and D, which is by height. Each first place of these classes they're going to make up a new category at the end or a new class called the overall. So these first places are going to battle it out, and they are going to determine who is the overall winner, which is the first place out of these first places. Now, in terms of qualification, this makes no difference. It's more so the prestige that comes with knowing that you beat absolutely everyone, I guess.
Dominate.
But yeah, you dominated, and that's what everyone is aiming for at a regional show, right? Like that's the kind of like the pro qual equivalent of the pro qualifier. But top whether you're top three, whether you're second, first, or overall, you still have the same qualification allowance, which is 365 days from the day of that show.
But you have to be in the top three in regional in order to go to a pro qualifier, or anybody who competes in a regional, whether they come in last place, they can still go to the pro
In
qualifier.
Canada, it's top three.
Okay. But
And
NPC worldwide is different.
it depends on the country, yeah. And I do believe in the States it's top two at a regional, if I'm not mistaken. But in Canada, top three at a regional in the open class or in the masters classes qualifies you to the. And now, let's say you do both. You do a masters and you do an open class. You can only do the class that you qualify for. So, for example, if you only get top three in masters, you can only do a pro qualifying masters class. You can't do the open if you don't qualify or get top three in the open as well. So this is something that's important to note as well because it's not just qualifying in any class to get to the next level and do whatever you please in the next
Whatever.
one. You are basically bound to whatever you qualify for. Um, then that's the June show, the Toronto Pro Qualifier. That's an international open pro qualifier. In July, this year is going to be July 25th. We have the Vancouver Pro Qualifier, also open, so you qualify through the open stream. And this one is also an international one, which means that anyone in the world can do it. In the first weekend of August, we have the one Canadian Natural Pro Qualifier. So it's the Natural Nationals, you can call it, in Canada. And this one is the one that you would qualify as a pro qualifier through the natural stream doing a natural regional. So same thing, top three, whether it's masters, whether it's open, then you qualify to this one show. Now, this year, they it used to be the case that you had to do the natural nationals in order for you to be able to do an international natural pro qualifier, like it was the Ben Weider. This year they changed it, so basically they give the opportunity of an athlete just in the case of the natural stream, you have the option of after you qualify through the natural regional, you have the option of either doing the Canadian Nationals in August, or you can go straight to an international natural pro qualifier, which is the Ben Weider, usually in November, and this one is in the States. So a little bit more flexible as of this year. It used to be the case that you had to do the nationals to the international one. For the natural stream, you can go straight to either or, and the qualification rule applies too. And
I
you're
want to
able, yeah, go ahead.
I want to ask about the natural stream because I don't know, not that I don't know about being natural, but I want to know more about this stream. It's so you can do the natural regional, natural pro qualifier. What happens when, let's say, a natural person gets their natural pro card? Are
Mhm.
there natural pro shows? I don't know
There are
this.
there are very few natural pro shows. The IFBB Pro League is working on, as the demand grows,
Okay.
we're actually having more natural pro shows. I do believe it kind of seems it hasn't been officially said, but I do believe that the IFBB Pro League is working towards creating some sort of natural stream within the Pro League, which you will have your natural Olympia equivalent as well. And so
Okay,
right now we
perfect.
don't have that per se, but for example, the natural pro qualifier, the Ben Weider, which is actually next weekend in Virginia, that one has it's a natural pro qualifier, but the next day they have the natural pro show. So if you turn pro, you can do the pro show. Next year, the natural nationals is going to have for the very first time a natural pro show the day after. So it's the first natural pro show in Canada, I believe. So yeah, so the natural stream is definitely growing as we get more demand, we get more participation. The both the Canadian Physique Alliance working with the IFBB Pro League, they're working on basically creating more options, creating basically more um, dates and shows available for people to grow within the sport. Being whether they're natural or whether they're open. So um,
Back on track.
back on track, yeah. So I think after I was talking about the natural stream, I do believe that was it for that one, like the natural pro qualifier. And then usually in October, we have the National Canadian Pro Qualifier. So this is the Nationals, Canadians only, and this is an open show. So basically, as opposed to the Toronto Pro Qualifier and the Vancouver Pro Qualifier, which are international, this one is Canadians only. So you have kind of like options. Obviously, in Canada, we have, I don't even know how many regionals we have, but the convenience is that obviously, if you're a first-time competitor and you may have a regional show in your province or even in your city, that may be very convenient to you. However, in the event that that timeline just doesn't work for you, perhaps you're a student and it just conflicts with finals or midterms or whatever, or your work schedule doesn't allow you to, or you're getting married, or you whatever the case may be. Um, you can do any regional in any province in Canada, and that would allow you to qualify for then again 365 days to all of the pro qualifiers that we have available in Canada. So important to note, just because yes, doing a show outside will of course come with additional expenses like your flight or your gas, your stay, whatever, but you do have the option of kind of because I know a lot of people in Winnipeg they want to do the show here in Winnipeg. If it doesn't work out for them, then you kind of start looking at a show in Saskatchewan or the neighboring province just to ensure that they still compete and they don't necessarily have, especially if they don't necessarily want to wait an entire year to make it happen, right? Let's say in 6 months or 3 months after it kind of works better for them, then they have those options too. So um, now talking about the shows themselves and kind of like to give you a little bit of an idea as to how they are run. It really depends on the show, but you have shows that are run in two parts, which is the prejudging, the morning component, and the finals, the evening component. Or there are shows that are actually run in a one show format sometimes, which basically means that both parts kind of take place at the same time. What does this depend on? Depends on the promoter, depends on how much is happening that same day or same weekend. Sometimes you'll have a regional, a pro qualifier, and even a pro show happening in the same weekend. So if it's like a matter of organizing, sometimes a promoter may feel that it's more suitable to do a one show format, for the sake of speeding it up, so to speak. But usually you'll have two components, the prejudging and the final. So the prejudging This is basically where the judging for your class takes place. As an amateur, I don't know if many of you knew this or not. Like for your class, let's say you're doing, men's CC class A. The judging and the placing for your class happens in prejudging. There's no change. Nothing is going to change for the evening. Okay, so I know a lot of people are hopeful that maybe they'll judge again. Maybe I can improve for the evening. If you got second call out, nothing's going to change. You're not going to get fifth, like, sorry, you're not going to get third, you're not going to get first if you got second call out. It is unfortunate, but that's how it works. And it's important to know because it allows you to plan better if you didn't know, and it also allows you to manage expectations as well. So the only judging that takes place in the finals is special awards like a best poster. Sometimes some shows have that, like certain routines for certain divisions. They provide like a best routine award and the overall. So the overall does take place. They judge it right there and there in the final. So if you think you can win your class and you maybe in the running for the overall, then you definitely want to ensure that you don't let go and you don't go eat whatever because if your look changes for the worse, you might have been in the running, but not anymore because you didn't, stay put. You didn't really mind your look. So
What
it's
are the
important.
chances of someone, okay, let's say they do first callouts and prejudging and then they're going into finals. What are the chances of a change and potentially like placing higher or lower
Like
in finals?
any change, it's like 0.00. Like it's not gonna happen. Like
You
it's
just
like
it's like it's locked in basically.
Okay. So I've competed for many years
And
since
I'm
'09.
not saying from like going from like second to first call.
No,
It's like
no,
that's not going to happen. But like, let's say you're there, you're in the top three, and then all of a sudden, like the chances of you actually getting moved to first are like slim to none. Like you're done.
no, it's not gonna happen.
Okay,
I know it, and even if you ask the judges, they may say, like I've asked the judges this, like a head judge
like
multiple
what
times. They're like,
are the
it's
chances?
because the way the system actually works, like it's not even up to them necessarily. It's like it would have, like the only way that this may happen is if there's some sort of tie, but there's tiebreaker systems in place, right? So there may be a tie, and then they have a way of determining how to break a tie. So that's
Okay.
not even, you know what I mean? So it's I've never seen it in the, I don't know, 20 years that I've seen shows and all that. And even at pro shows, they don't, they have the confirmation rounds, but it's like very, very rarely they'll change something unless there's a specific show that, implies that it's 50% one day, 50% the other, like the Olympia, for example. There's 2 days, right? So you are going to be judged those 2 days, like those two parts, those 2 days or whatever. Like the open bodybuilding, like they have Friday prejudging, Saturday the finals, right? So every day is going to be a different. Like
Okay.
they're not gonna
So
just,
if it is a split format, because obviously like there are times where it's like all of a sudden, and I see this of course like with bikini competitors, it is more in the pro leagues, but the chance like I want to know like when that happens, but obviously that's not talking about CC,
Yeah,
that's a little bit different.
yeah.
But that
It's
would be
like
more so like in a 2 day format, not like a two show format.
not even like I'm talking about just the Olympia because I've done a two show format, like 2 day.
Mhm.
In 2019 when I did the Toronto Pro Qualifier, it was the prejudging on Friday, the finals on Saturday, and even then, like they already knew
It's
they
the
weren't
exact
gonna
same
change it. It was exact same. But because of how the system, like basically once they finish the class, they slide those scorecards
at the
um,
end.
to the stats person. Stats person puts them in the system, and then they come up with the placing sheet, so to speak, that they use in
Okay.
the finals. It's already determined, right? Like it's not, again, it's nothing, like the judges don't know. The people usually they just, it's not a personal decision or anything like that. It's just basically they judge each one independent, they provide it, and then the placing is already in place, and there's really no changes.
So
There shouldn't be a
always
reason.
right. Always bring your best to prejudging. Don't be like, oh, well, I can make it up in finals. Like, still don't go into finals like with well, already lost. Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't matter. Like, still show
yeah,
up because that's sportsmanship.
yeah,
And that's like your attitude. But
yeah.
go into prejudging with 100%.
Right. And speaking of the sportsmanship and professionalism, very important, I think, because people. handle losses differently as well. So it's important to ensure that whatever happens, you're already, because the judges are going to see that, and whether they use it against you or not, which they probably won't, it's just not a good look for you, right? Not gonna look for you, not gonna look for your coach, and you're perfectly entitled to feel however you were going to, but like when you're there, congratulate whoever beat you. Like some of us are really passionate, so we may feel a little bit more fire in ourselves to feel regarding disappointment of not winning perhaps, but it is very important. You will always be happier that you remain professional regardless of the situation,
Yeah.
because that'll haunt you probably a little bit. Especially, yeah, I've seen some really bad reactions, and I'm sure you've seen a couple of like the
Yeah.
Middle Eastern
They get like in a
guys
fight
just
on
like
stage.
flipping the judges and whatnot. But like that never ends up well for them. Like in those situations, you're done. Like
Yeah, be
they're
professional.
probably either gonna ban you or, but the professionalism of ensuring that whether you think you're gonna win or not, that you remain on point for the finals is also important, because if you're going to be serious about this sport, you're going to have to collect data, whether you're being coached or not, or maybe you're being coached by yourself. Let's say you didn't nail your peak, meaning that you didn't look 100% for the prejudging. Well, why? Like you need to determine why, and you're going like you have the opportunity, even though the placing is already determined, to study why or what could change for the better or for the worse. So by kind of just ensuring that you know what you're doing and trialing and seeing how you look at the finals, you'll ensure that you're better prepared. Perhaps you didn't eat enough. Let's say you were a little bit too scared to spill over, which is a term that we use to say that someone ate too much and they started to kind of like go the other way, where they were softer looking. Perhaps you were too scared, you didn't eat enough, and then after, you'll sometimes hear someone between shows or even after the show, they'll eat a burger or fries or whatever. Oh my God, I look better. Well, you didn't eat enough, whether it was carbs, fat, sodium, water, even, right? So it's important to kind of just ensure that if you're going to want to continue doing this, if you don't really care, then that's fine. You can do whatever you want. But if you want to improve, you need to ensure that you collect data, that you continue to study. You become forever a student of the craft, right? So
It's also like another opportunity to like go on stage, and if you do have like a posing presentation or whatever, like you get to go on there and like you get to do it again, right? It's not
yeah,
that you just go on one time in the day, you get to go on twice, maybe three
yep,
times. It's
yep,
like take advantage of every single opportunity.
yeah. And photographers take pictures of
Yeah.
both components, the
Yeah.
prejudging and the finals, right? Those pictures are going to be on the internet, and you don't want to look back and be like, damn, man, I should have kept it tight, because like those are the pictures that the photographer doesn't
Yeah.
really
Those are
know or
the ones
care.
that we
They just
remember.
pick
Yeah.
whichever he sees, and then they just post them, right? And if you are actually going to want feedback from the judges, they're going to ask you for whether it was the professional pictures or some
Posings.
pictures. And if you only have like your finals pictures, which are not the true look that you had, then you're not going to be able to get the feedback that you need, because that's not the true representation of your work and your look, right? So once you know you're placing for sure, you get off stage, discuss it with your coach, or if you're coaching yourself, whatever. You can probably whatever you want for that night. Like it's customary. That's what most people do. And then after that, it is. I would suggest, if you're a first time competitor, ensure that you have some sort of post show plan in place. I usually like to have my diet or my client's diets for the next day, or at least an idea
Absolutely.
for the next week, because the post show phase is where you can gain the most muscle or the most fat. It can be very hard psychologically if you kind of get pulled into that binging type of cycle, because it's gonna be, everyone's gonna be having cravings, everyone's gonna be hungry, everyone's going to feel like they're a you know endless pit, and but the thing is, if you have a plan, then you're more likely to stick to it. And there's
Yes.
certain things to kind of just ensure that you become more satisfied with your meal, so that you end up eating perhaps less. But whether you want to continue or not with this competitive lifestyle, if you don't want to be one of those people that rebound and gain a lot of weight, and then they end up, being too hard on
Blaming
themselves.
bodybuilding.
They blame bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is, it's a terrible sport. It's so bad for you. So, well, we're all adults here. We know bodybuilding, especially in the open stream, comes with certain risks, and it's always important to know them. But at the end of the day, for a lot of people, I think it's more their own actions and not allowing. or allowing the loss of control that ends up putting them in a way worse position than they would have had they had a plan otherwise, right?
I've never heard of someone follow a post-show plan and like talk shit about
Regret
it. You know, they're
it.
like, "Oh my God, I followed my
I
plan
wish I
and it's
didn't.
like fucking embarrassed." Like
Mhm.
it never happened. So like always thought like the post-show plan is just as important as the prep. It's like you need to get into it and then you need to get out of it.
And it's arguably, depending, it's arguably harder because when you're prepping for a show, you have a goal, you have the pressure of the competition, you have that timeline or summit. Once you're done with
Like
that, and I
what's
mean, I,
next?
I would suggest that you set up some sort of plan, whether you want to continue or not. But there's that like, if there's nothing in the horizon, you kind of just lost, right? So you don't know. And if you're lost, you're more likely to just say, fuck it. I don't really have a plan. I don't really have a reason to continue being this strict, which in a sense is true in terms of a deficit, but for the purpose of your own mental
Being
health and physical health, it is in your best interest that you try to fight those cravings and stick with the plan. You are going to increase your calories. That's basically what you want to do
yeah.
usually after a show, unless you have another show lined up. But stopping cardio. Usually, what happens? The worst possible scenario is someone cold turkey stops the cardio. They don't train for a while. They drink a lot less water. They binge. So it's just a
Yeah.
recipe for
Yeah.
for disaster, and that's where you hear these horror stories of 40 pounds of weight gaining like one
Yeah.
2 weeks. It's insane. Um, Now, within the show, certain divisions like classic physique, men's bodybuilding, women's bodybuilding, and women's physique, in the finals, they will get 60 seconds of it's a routine with the music of your choice. So you can pick whatever music you want as long as it doesn't have, you know, uh, profanity
Vulgar
or any
language.
bad
Yeah.
word. Yeah, exactly. And you get to come up with a set of poses to the routine. This is where, I mean, a lot of people are not a fan of this, but if you like the art of posing, this is where you get to really express yourself as a bodybuilder. And everyone gets to do it. You don't really have a choice. Now, whether you have one of these or not, it is suggested that you have some sort of posing guidance. Um, Posing is probably one of the most under estimated components in competition prep.
Yeah.
Obviously, your training, your cardio, your nutrition are going to develop and shape and mold your physique, but you can have an absolute fantastic physique. If you're not able to properly present it, someone that actually looks worse than you but presents
Gonna win.
it better can
Yeah.
actually beat you. So I don't know of more frustrating situations, than that. You already come so far, you already put so much effort, and then you kind of cut corners when it came to the posing. It is hard because you're tired, and posing takes a lot of like. If you've done the show, you know how hard posing it is. If
Yeah.
done properly, of course, right? So do that extra 15% of the effort because it can basically be the difference between you winning or getting second place or perhaps not even placing nearly as close as you thought you could because you just kind of cut corners, right?
And that's something that's like more in your control than how much like muscle you gain or how much fat you
Yeah.
lose like during your prep. Like you can't get like yes, you control that, but only to a certain amount. Whereas like you can still put in the work and the effort and the progress into posing, and that can just amplify everything. So even if you're not able to get to the right amount of conditioning, if you can improve in your posing just a little bit, that makes a massive
Yep.
difference.
Absolutely. All right. And the last point that I wanted to talk about is in prejudging, depending on your division, whether it's bikini, men's physique, and whatnot, you will get your individual presentation. Everyone gets to do it once. If you have, let's say 3 classes that you're doing, you're only going to do it once, which is in the first one. Let's say you're doing True Novice Masters and, oh, let's talk about True Novice and
Open.
Novice too. Yeah, True Novice, Masters, and Open. You'll get to do it in True Novice, and then that's it. So practice it, ensure that you nail it, because that's the only time you're going to really present it. For men's bodybuilding, classic physique, women's physique, women's bodybuilding, you get 30 seconds of your individual presentation and prejudging. Every single other division gets 15 usually. Now, classes like True Novice and Novice. True Novice is designed for a competitor that has never competed before. So you've never stepped foot on stage, then you can do the True Novice class, which basically means everyone that is in that class, what they have in common is the same. They no one has competed in that class. Then you have the novice class, which means that you've competed before, but you haven't gotten first place. So let's say you did whatever classes, it didn't really matter, and you got second, 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 second. You can still do the novice because you have, even if it wasn't the open that you got second, if you haven't gotten first, you're considered technically still a novice, so you can do it. I recommend a lot of my clients to, if they can do, let's say they've competed before and they qualify for the novice class, I recommend that they do it because, especially if you haven't done a show in a while or you haven't stepped on that stage,
Right.
it is an opportunity to get some practice within the same show, within the same stage, environment, lights, whatever, so that when you step on stage for the open, which is the one that qualifies you, the one that really matters, then you're more likely to nail it as opposed to just kind of going
Yes.
there. I mean, granted, the more you do these shows, eventually you're just going to have one opportunity, especially at a pro qualifier. There's no novice. But if you do get the opportunity, I think it would be a good idea to kind of just enter that class, kind of loosen up a little bit, and then be
Right.
better prepared for the open. So
That helped me significantly. I remember you recommended that, and it was like day and night difference between the two classes.
yeah, I remember a figure client that she did the True Novice, Masters, and Open in one class. She was so nervous for True Novice. She ended up doing just figure, right? She ended up doing like two bikini poses. Like I don't know where she
Like
got him
completely
from.
different.
It was just so random, and I'm like, what was that? And then she did the Masters, looked way better with the posing, and then the Open. She ended up placing better
I
as it got harder. So
was
her worst placing was a True Novice. Then she did okay in the Masters, and then she got first, I think, in the
that's
Open. So that
more
would be an
important
example
anyway.
of that. Yeah, super important. All right. So, do we have any questions from the audience there that we kind of
Yeah,
posted that story?
I had a couple questions. There was post-show day, like what to expect from the body. So let's say apart from the nutrition element and like reversing your coach, who's a great coach, has a plan for you. What do you expect from the body afterwards, like the day after?
Well, show day is very exhausting. It's a very long day.
Yeah.
You're going to wake up really early because you have to plan your meals for the day. You have to you have your tanning appointment. You have your hair and makeup likely. So you're probably gonna wake, depending on what time prejudging is, depending on, you might have to wake up at 3 a.m. and then you're gonna, if it's a really long show,
You just
you
wait.
might end up going to bed at like past midnight, right? So what to expect that day when you're on stage, it really, with the adrenaline and the amount of calories you're gonna be burning because of that, that's kind of something you can unlikely control. You're gonna be burning a lot of calories. So it's like one or two workouts that day. The next day you're going to be very drained. Once that adrenaline goes away, leaves your system, the next day you'll likely feel it. Depending on the situation, depending on how long I've been working with the client, how long, whether I trust their, um, what's the term, and whether I trust their relationship with food, or whether I trust how their work ethic, perhaps. I may allow them to just eat instinctively the next day. In certain cases, just to be cautious, I'll just have a strict plan right away, and then we'll plan for a cheat meal just to, again, if they didn't have one the night before, or if they did, then they're probably good for the next 24 hours. But it really depends on the person. But you are going to be tired. That's basically what it comes down to. It's going to be a very long day. It's going to be a very exhausting day. Um, you know, Depending on how things went, there's going to be feelings that you are potentially going to have to sort out, whether it was like joy, disappointment,
Yeah.
um, you know, you're motivated, you're going to want to start planning. It really depends on the type of person you are and where you want to go with the sport. For me, for my last show, I know that um, I try to get better with the post-show situation the more I compete, right? So I already had my meal good to go right after um, finals. It was basically all I need to do is heat it up, right? So I didn't get the opportunity like people offer me cookies, this and that. Like I just wanted to ensure that for me, especially if you're bringing your absolute best, I wanted to keep my physique for a little bit longer.
Don't,
Like I
yeah,
didn't
don't
want, and
blow it.
that's why a lot of people. And it gets like when it's super, like when it's a really rapid rate of change where you soften and some people don't really care. I used to really don't care, but now like the more I put into this, I'm like, I want to keep it just for a little bit longer. I want to enjoy maybe a little bit of food, but looking really close to that for a little bit, and eventually it will go away. But that's kind of where where my mind was at. Like it was traveling day to day after, and I just wanted to ensure that I didn't overdo it, and I didn't, and it felt really good. The more you do this, you realize that not feeling bloated and having good digestion becomes more and more important to you.
Right.
Like I've had situations in which I just like I eat till I can't anymore. And the moment I feel like I can eat a little bit more than I do, and it's just like then you're like, where the fuck did I do that? And then you keep doing it the moment you can, and you don't even have space to drink water. It happens to a lot of us, and the point is with my clients, my goal is that it does like it happened to me. I learned the hard way. I don't want for you guys to experience that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when you're in the dark and no one's watching, you're gonna do whatever you want to do. But at the very least, you have the support there to ensure that you navigate this potentially dark phase the proper way.
Yeah. I had one of my clients was asking me like how they're supposed to feel post show. Like it's like yeah, they're like lost or confused, and they're like I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. It's like well, you don't have to know exactly like what a perfect like reverse or post show should look like. It's how it feels, and sometimes like we do learn post show like the hard way. And then it's like, well, maybe you don't know what direction you need to go, but at least you know what direction you don't want to go. So if you had like a horrible rebound last time, you're like, okay, well, maybe let's not do that again. And maybe we can have a better post show if we don't rebound and if we follow the plan and all of that.
Absolutely. I had a client this season where tons of potential. First show, first she was doing amazing leading up to maybe like 3 weeks out, and then um, life stressors and things like that. Then I think it kind of got to her, and she started kind of you know, falling off the plan and just adding cheating. She will always report it, which I really appreciated. But and that's usually the thing with females, like they will tell you. Guys, they won't. Guys will freaking keep it and they'll tell you after the show, and then you're like scratching your head and you don't know what the hell's going on. But anyways, so I was trying really hard to kind of get to her mindset and explaining the reason why it's not in her best interest to continue down this road. You have a lot of potential. You could really kill it this show. And then I realized, well, sometimes for some people, falling and messing up is part of the process, right? And sometimes that is actually the best teacher for certain people. Because I can tell you the most amazing statement, the most motivational shit, and it might hit you for like 5 minutes, an hour. But I feel like sometimes when you fall and then life smacks the fuck out of your face, and then you really fail, that's when
Right.
it really hurts. That's when you really learn. That's when it
Yeah.
really, you kind of like give your head a shake and you're like, oh shit, okay, now I'm learning. So sometimes that's necessary too,
Yeah.
right? Like it's understanding what needs to happen. Like you're going to support them, but at the end of the day, you're not in control of what they put in their
What they're
mouth,
gonna
right?
do.
Like when no one's watching, you don't really know. You're not even in control of them being completely transparent and opening up and letting you know what they're doing, right? But it's a collaboration and ensuring that both parties learn from each other. And then, you know, I know for a fact that after the season was over, she was like, okay, I think it hit her, and she's like, okay, this is what he meant, and that feeling of like, I know I could have done
Yeah.
better, so now let's get better, right? So.
Absolutely. Another question is how long would you suggest taking between shows if you wanted to do multiple? Answer. It depends.
No,
Yeah.
these are really good questions because it allows us to provide insight into different scenarios, right? I'll give you an example. My wife, last year she did 8 shows. Who the hell does 8 shows? And my my current limit is two. Like, and historically, I would peak and nail the first one and come, not completely, but and not do as well in the second one because I'm already mentally
Right.
tired, and it depends
Right.
on how far apart they were.
Yeah.
But when I was coaching her last year, um, she did the regional, she did the pro qualifier, turn pro, first attempt. Then she did the pro show the day after. So that was the first pro show of six that she did. We kept track of her blood work, kept getting better. So I had zero reason for me to, because usually, after a few shows, then you normally kind of like pull back because most people are tired and their bodies start to display certain things and maybe their hormones start to like read a certain way through blood work. I had no reason to tell her otherwise, and I asked her, "How are you doing mentally?" She's
How
like,
are you
"Let's get it,
feeling?
let's
Yeah.
keep going, right?" So that's it's a combination of where your mind is at. It's a combination of your genetics, how resilient you are to the hardships of a prep and the stress of it. Some people,
Mhm.
like actually, Carl Wasser, like she,
Yeah.
how many shows
Yeah.
does she do? 15 shows a year, easy. Yeah,
And she
so
travels for it, which is like
right. So
wild,
that's an
absolutely
additional
wild.
stressor, right?
Um,
So you'll have those outliers.
yeah, I think the two biggest factors would be how you're feeling mentally and physically. Like if you're completely exhausted and you feel like trash and your mind's like not clear, obviously that's like a huge red flag. But it also depends on the judge's feedback because you might feel good, but if the judges are like, you need an off season, like you need to grow, like they're basically telling you not to step on stage again.
Yep.
And but if like there'll be some judges where they're like, what's next? What are you gonna do next? And they'll kind of guide you or reassure you if, yeah, that's a good idea to do, or like maybe take a little bit longer before your next show.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always a good idea to get the feedback from the judges. And unless, your coach knows 100% of what needs to happen, but even then, you
Right.
might be surprised, right? But yeah, you're absolutely right. If the feedback leads towards you need more muscle, take the time.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Gaining muscle takes time. And if you just kind of keep going show to show, you might even lose muscle. You might
Yeah.
think you might try to train harder, but if your body's getting stressed, it's just not going to happen, right? You need to allow your body to recover. Some people can grow between shows, but that's very, very rare. If it's like a minor adjustment, let's say for bikini, they're like, oh, just come in tighter the next show. 2 weeks, you could probably get it done.
Easy. Yeah.
Yeah. If they're
Depends
like, come
depends
softer the
on
next
the
show.
class too, right? Or it depends on the division. Sorry. Like it's not easier, but a more conditioned category is probably going to do, if anything, maybe more back-to-back shows or do like a one and done thing. Whereas like bikini, it's a little bit easier to kind of keep going and doing more because there is that, I don't know if you want to call it like room for error, but there is that like little variable, right? Where you can kind of like flex around and come in fuller and you don't have to be like super conditioned, if that kind of
Yeah,
makes
I
sense.
mean, technically, but lately these girls in bikini are pretty conditioned too. But
Yeah.
um, what you're saying absolutely makes sense. It's basically the more the lower the body fat percentage of or the body fat is on paper, that should be a lot harder to kind of upkeep for a little bit
Right.
longer. The more muscle someone has, it's also let's talk about open bodybuilding for example, right? Like the amount of compounds or things they have to put in their
Right.
bodies to upkeep that amount of muscle, and eventually it gets to the point in which you have to really be more precise with when you get your blood work and ensuring that internally everything is fine. That might be the case that might be the reason that doesn't allow you to continue competing.
Right.
Not necessarily mentally, not necessarily that you feel a certain way, but if your freaking, blood lipids are absolutely trash and or your T3 or whatever, and there's something there, maybe your whatever the case may be that needs to be paid attention to that is potentially a reason of concern, then you should probably listen to that. There's certain markers that will tell you how your organs are doing too, your
Yeah.
liver, your kidneys. So
I think getting
that's
blood work, I'll just put like a little blanket statement, blood work, whether you're natural or enhanced, is like so important to do because you might feel fine, but if there's like little like check your engine lights going off, like those are things not to dismiss or be like, yeah, I'll do it later. I'm just gonna do a couple more shows. Like those are, I don't know, I think big red flags.
Yeah, and that's I think how a lot of people end up screwing themselves over. We're really passionate about this, and a lot of people end up, as you're saying, just kind of like sweeping it under the rug until your body
Yeah.
just takes control and tells you you can't do shit because you didn't, take care of what you were supposed to. Definitely in both streams, but especially in the open, ensuring that you keep up with your heart tests and ensuring that, again, blood work is where it's supposed to be and there's no reason of concern, then that's super
Right.
important. So, all right. We have a couple more
No,
questions. That's it.
we're good.
All right. Well, I'll leave a couple minutes to see if anyone here listening to us has any questions. If not, then I'll ensure I'll keep this on the feed for future reference.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah, we
you have
want
to save it and send it to me.
yeah, as I mentioned, we wanted to kind of just potentially officially kick off the 2025 CPA season by providing some information for people interested in competing, whether you've competed before or maybe it's your first time competition. If you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me or Courtney. If you need a coach as well, if you need a posing coach as well, we can definitely point you in the right direction if not. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, put them here now. Even after I post this, if you want to comment any questions in the comment section, feel free to do so. Other than that, hopefully this served you guys, especially the newbies. And then again, we're a community who want to ensure that we provide quality information and spread the word of little things that can make a difference in your experience, especially if you're a first-time competitor.
Right.
As competitors, we love the sport. I'm comparing myself. I'm the coach, so is Kearney. I'm also a promoter, so we basically live and breathe bodybuilding, and we just want to ensure that anyone that comes in contact with our sport has a good experience and it doesn't have one of those, horror story experiences that, has them, curse the name of bodybuilding and potentially destroy their health, right?
Right.
So. All right, guys. If nothing more, then that's it for us for today. Thank you for tuning in. And then again, if you have any questions, we're definitely happy to answer them. So,
Thank you. That was fun. Thank you.
see ya.
Bye.